right, excellent condition. Let's go live, shall we? And let's make sure this thing is muted for once, because I don't want to have a whole ton of feedback in my eardrums. If that's altogether possible. Good, that's on mute. Let's go ahead and bump out the chat, shall we? I think we shall. Good, we'll get everyone here. And once folks start to filter in, I will move us to what we're going to talk about tonight, which is the 25 cognitive biases, why that's important for you. Let me get the phone set up here just in case folks try to get into, oh, snap, a blast from the past, man. One of my homeboys from growing up. Just on my Instagram. That's pretty cool. The Jolly Mage. Well, there's somebody who I haven't seen in a long time, man. You acting with Denzel yet? Good to see you, man. I'm glad you're here. That is a sight for sore eyes, man. Very nice to have you. Very, very nice. So we're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics that you've been through today. Uh, 25 cognitive biases. Let's see. Jolly Mage says, I was watching Your Mind is Killing You vid, and then I got a notification that you were live. Sweet, man. Now you got... and then I did a video last night, too, called Do You Know Your Life's Purpose? Or What is Your Life's Purpose? Something along those lines. Let's get to... This is going to be tonight's discussion, so let's go ahead and pull that up and get my little chat box out of the way here. Put it down on the side. This is a very important video for those of you that are tuning in. You don't need to go watch it right now. It's actually kind of long, but if you were here for our last video, then you know how important I think it is. We're actually going to talk about one of the cognitive biases that leads us to overconsume things like entertainment. This is a very important video to watch, even if you can't. And one of the things I always have to encourage people with is, if the video is, I'm not sure how long this video is, maybe an hour, maybe two, I can't remember. But like when I'll have people say, dude, you can't expect me to watch you for 2 hours. No, I don't expect you to watch me for 2 hours, especially if you have stuff going on in your life. Watch it for 15 minutes, go do something else, and then come back to it when you have time. I do that all the time. Like the things that I watch, or I watch comedy specials, which I'll sit through that whole thing because it's usually only about an hour. I'll watch documentaries, and I'll watch interviews with really, really well-known people who are experts in their field. Like I watch Neil deGrasse Tyson interviews because I learned so much just about, I am technically a scientist, but I'm a dilettante compared, well, to most people, let alone Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I learned a ton of things about science, about evolution, about the way astrophysics works, right? Why astrology is basically BS, things like that. So it's, and he would never say that. Drex Ferguson says, I'm here now. Everyone can relax. We are relaxed, Drex Ferguson. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. All right, why did it do that? That doesn't make any sense. But we're definitely going to be talking about the cognitive biases, and I want to pull up two pages, actually. I want to pull up this page with the cognitive biases on it, and I want to pull up the live stream itself just to make sure that we're doing okay here on the stream. All right, so the stream looks good. All right, got that. Got a bunch of people that have been here. Also, the hexacode test, I pulled this up just to kind of show everybody what I'm talking about when I talk about the big six. This H factor personality must read. It's actually one of the required reading. It's part of the required reading material in our Good Life Playbook coaching program, this page right here, but we're not here to talk about that on this video. We want to talk about the 25 cognitive biases. So until everyone filters in and we start getting questions and I can start going through the material, let's talk to the Jolly Mage. How is that acting career going, dude? I've been kind of loosely keeping up with what you've been doing, from what I've seen on Facebook and a couple of things on Instagram, auditions, films that you were working on, um, things like that. Very curious about how that's going in specifics. Obviously specifics that you can tell us about, right? And I think, you and one of my other friends. In fact, I got a call from a friend who's in the acting and producing space, and she's working to produce a show. And she called my wife and I and said, "Hey, how would you guys like to do a show on the Oprah Network?" And I kind of laughed because I'm like, "Well, of course, dude, give me a show on the Oprah Network. I'm there tomorrow." But then I kind of laughed and started thinking about the target audience on that show. I'm like, what what I have to say to these ladies. You know what I mean? Like, I don't talk about things that are typical on Oprah's show. Not that Oprah doesn't cover these things; she absolutely does. But yeah, I'd love to hear. I think the audience would love to hear. Jolly Mage is someone I worked with for a couple of years, who just took those interactions and multiplied them by a million, and really went hard after his dream. And it's just been fun to watch somebody really figure out. And I think I remember one of our coaching calls that kind of was the turning point. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I just remember your reaction when I did the exercise with the group where I have you take your yearly salary and divide it so that you can figure out how much money you are not making a day. And he was like, yo, this is some BS. It's an exercise, actually, an exercise that one of my coaches took me through years ago. And I was just like, you gotta be. And I was doing all right. I was making well over six figures at that point. And I was just like, yo, this is such a hustle, man. Such a hustle. Uh, let's see. Jolly Mage says, acting career is a slow burn right now. I'm learning a lot about my life right now, the things I care about, my wants and desires as a man without the biases that the world puts on me. That's awesome, man. And everything's a slow burn. And you're in that phase where you figured it out and you know the direction that you want to go right now, which is just for now. I tell people all the time, like, what if I make a decision and I find out 5 years later I want to do something else? Like, well, then 5 years later, do something else. It's gonna be all right. I tell the story about my mentor all the time that was in business for, and he's in different types of businesses, but he had a core business that he owned, um, and was the president of. And I think he ran that business for 35 years, and then he closed it down. And it was like, so what's next? He's like, oh, I'm gonna experiment with some stuff. Like, this dude's in his 70s and he's still experimenting and not upset about it. It's like, yeah, he's lived enough life to understand that there's no exact roadmap that says these are the 9 things you have to do, and then you achieve happiness. Happiness is a journey, man. It's not. I didn't really get into a debate, but I had a lot of people angry on Instagram today because I posted a Joe Rogan quote about how money doesn't basically buy happiness. And inevitably, what happens is people that don't have money start, well, you don't ever hear poor people say that. I'm like, well, yeah, because poor people, certainly more money would make their situation better. But what you don't understand when you don't have money is that all of a sudden getting it doesn't, then, oh, now I'm happy. Sure, you're more comfortable. Sure, you're not probably as fearful as you were when you were struggling. But it doesn't then just make you happy, right? And so they're like, of course, Joe can say that he's filthy rich, and it's like, no, there's plenty of people who are, dude. I tell people all the time when I first started making six figures, it was the most miserable time of my life. It was the most money I'd ever made in my life, and I was miserable. You know, we had money, but I was not. What in God's name? All right, I don't hear anybody screaming. Jolly Mage says, "Yeah, man, that was it. That exercise in the book Awaken the Giant Within, and your guidance with that. Yeah, man, that exercise. It's a punch in the face, but it's once you come down from being angry, it's like, thank God somebody said this to me, because now I understand I'm trading my time for money, and it's just not a good idea. Like even in the marketing world, when I consult businesses, you get a lot of them that I think they really don't realize. I think what I found on the marketing side of the consulting, and I only do a little bit here and there as a boutique because I don't really have too much patience to be a consultant. And it's way too much. Like, I need a certain type of client for that to work. Um, and you realize, man, these people really have no idea what marketing is. Their business is doing well because they either sell a commodity or they sell something that the public needs. So the marketing, the word of mouth marketing kind of takes care of itself. But then when they start thinking about growing, they have no idea how marketing works because they want to pay you less than they pay and I'm talking about businesses that are making well over $1 million a year, in the millions, and they want to pay you less than they would pay a personal assistant. I'm like, you you have no idea how this works. You don't just, and a lot of businesses, believe it or not, uh, hire like receptionists and then just have the receptionist do the marketing. And you start thinking about, okay, this is a person who's answering the phones and doing the marketing. What they're really doing is just managing a Facebook page, not really. Anyway, helping the business grow. Let's see. Jolly Mage says, I want to recommend the book for a later read, The Dip. But yes, yes, I was in a class where Seth Godin taught on the dip. So important, man. Um, by Seth Godin. It has a lot of great talking points related to how your brain wants comfort now rather than later. 100%, man. In fact, in our course, I recommend people go through that Seth Godin course specifically for that. Tony JV says, "Hey, dude, how you doing? Beard looking dope as hell, isn't it though? Isn't that beard looking sexual? Look at it. Look at that thing, man." I had a lady tell me the other day. She's like, "I had to stop you. You're just so handsome." I said, "I know. I'm glad you stopped me because I was gonna stop you and tell you how handsome I was." All right, so part of that story was true. Let's see. Drex Ferguson says, "What book slash exercise?" Um, what book exercise? Oh, so the book. Uh, so Terrence is talking about a book called The Dip by Seth Godin, which I haven't read the book, but I went through the class he taught on it, which was dope. So now I need to read the book. That's got to be on my list, along with the other books that I've been reading. This book for like a month. It's so heavy. This is a book that I can't get through fast. It's called The Story of Philosophy. And it's just there's so much stuff in here that it's like I'll read 4 pages a day and that's all my brain can take. And not because I couldn't read more, it's because I don't want to treat it like middle school where I take in all this information and remember none of it. It's like I'll meditate on it, I'll tweet about it, I'll talk about it with my wife. I have a neighbor that I talk philosophy with. I love talking to him. We'll talk politics and philosophy and ethics and stuff. And I can run ideas by him, and he'll hit me with his side, and then it's like, oh yeah, that gives me something to consider. So it's a book that's one of those kind of you want to savor the taste of it books. Let's see. Jolly says, Drex Ferguson, I'm actually in the process of recording that information for the group to see. I'm really out of accountability, something that I've been looking to do, but was in fear of judgment. Huh, did I miss something Drex said? Oh, he's talking about Awaken the Giant Within was the book. Got you. Yeah, it was just a big workbook. And so, Drex, the exercise we were talking about was understanding why it's not wise to trade your time for money. So basically, what you do is you take your yearly salary and divide it by 365, and then you realize how much money you're making a day to do what you do. And like I did that exercise, and so I'm from Washington D.C., so obviously the cost of living is pretty high here, and I've my travels have allowed me to work with quite a few different souls, to include homeless people. So, uh, when I did that, I was making I don't remember exactly. I was making over 6 figures. I don't remember exactly what my salary was at the time, and I didn't really have any revenue. Well, no, I did. I had some revenue coming in from my business, but it was mostly coming in from my work. When I did that exercise, I realized, yo, I'm making a couple $100 a day, which some people, that sounds amazing. I was like, dude, I know homeless people where I'm from that clear that much. I could literally go out on the corner and beg, and if I'm really good at it, because Simon Sinek told me how to beg as a homeless person, I could actually make a lot of money. Uh, it's just crazy. Like, why would I keep doing this and working crazy hours for not what I'm worth? Especially when you look at, because I think there's some people that they're laborers, and that's where they need to be until they learn skills and things that they can apply that can help somebody make money or get better at something. But I had a lot of skills that weren't being used at all, and I'm just like, this is a waste. Jolly says, no, it was something I spoke with you about, B, but never followed up, but always stayed on my mind to do. Are you talking about what you said about accountability? I think I missed part of the conversation in transit here. You said you were going to follow up with me about you talking about accountability type stuff. You know how to find me, dude. If the answer is yes to that, you know exactly how to find me, man. I hit me up anytime. I'd also recommend you come back to the Facebook group and engage. There's a lot of really cool people there doing cool stuff, man. That I think you get a lot out of talking with those folks. And I need to hook you up with my friend who's the actress producer. I think you guys might be able to collab on something. Let's see. Drex Ferguson says, okay, cool, Drex. I like Drex's comment that says, that's how an ENTJ Leo enters a room. It's like, no, that's how a narcissist enters a room. Oh, man. Yeah, good old astrology. I'm not going to touch it. One, because I don't know jack about it other than every time someone tries to tell me, you're a Flibaroo, I'm like, yeah, yeah, whatever. If that makes you feel better about your life, then that's what I am. Like, here's some overly vague thing about you that should apply to you today. Like, dude, that could apply to any human soul. Like, you want to make money and not be lonely. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, so that's what my sign decided? All right, so wanted to go over with y'all. Let's check the stream one mo again. Just one mo. All right, so it looks like we got folks are here. Folks are here that are gonna be here. So let's go ahead and get on with the show. Uh, I wanted to talk with everybody about the cognitive biases, and I think it's a good follow-up. This is a good practical follow-up to a very philosophical discussion that we had earlier today. Jolly Mage says, yeah, I'm getting a control on my life and have been reining in to slow down uh, so that I can be more open to the people around me and who I interact with. So I will def feedback. Cool, man. Yeah. You know, it's your house, brother. You're welcome anytime. And if you need something from me, you know how to find me. What I wanted to do, I was contemplating, you know, if we do another call tonight. And by the way, for those of you that aren't already doing this, we send you a link here. Ooh, I spelled that wrong. If you're not already following me on Twitch, definitely do that because we're gonna have the after party on Twitch. After I finish here hanging out with you guys, I'm gonna go spend some more time with my kids just to make sure they're cool. Everybody's been fed. I think the ones that are here and not at a sleepover are playing Xbox, so I'm gonna go kick it with them for a little while. Then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna hang out on Twitch, play some games, chit chat, a little bit more, a little bit less scientific, heavy conversation. We can just like last night we had a really good time just hanging out. I stayed up way later than I should, but you know, my doctor told me I needed to make more time for fun stuff. So I chalked it up to I was making time for fun stuff. It was a good conversation. We were just hanging out, playing video games. You know, not everything is work, not everything is crazy brain exercises and reading 20 books. I mean, you see books all over my desk, but you also see games over my desk. By the way, I don't know if you can see it off screen here. This is the PS3 that actually plays PS2 games, which I've been waiting to get my hands on one of those for a long time, and I got it for a really good deal from my friend that owns a used retro game store. So it was awesome. Anyway, I thought the 25 cognitive biases would be so. If today's earlier video was kind of this philosophical, your mind is trying to kill you, and what I meant by that was it's not literally trying to kill you. It's that your mind is wired a certain way that works against modern day ambition, right? So in the modern world, and I can take that back even a couple thousand years ago, uh, the chief aim of the human soul was to be happy, right? Different people define happiness in different ways, but ultimately, there were a couple of things that were necessary to be happy. You had to have a certain amount of possession. Certainly not a billionaire. You couldn't be living below subsistence and expect to be supremely happy, which is what the Instagram, I think, blow up was about, and earlier today. But the idea that the chief aim, and then Sigmund Freud came behind and said the same thing. Uh, 1,000 years after that, or thousands of years after that, you know, because I'm talking about like Aristotle and Socrates. If the chief aim of life is being happy, finding whatever your definition of happiness is, then the problem with that is that your brain is not wired to do the things that make you happy. The brain is wired to survive. And by that, it's made to run away from pain and run toward pleasure. But in the modern world, running toward pleasure is usually an endless cycle, right? So if you look at someone that has really bad eating habits, the food that they're eating is bringing them great pleasure, but it's also coming at a cost of their health, right? And thus their health diminishes. They emotionally are feeling not good about what they're eating, which then leads them back to wanting to eat something pleasurable because it sends a dopamine rush into the brain, right? So there's a trade-off there that's not good. 10,000 years ago, eating a Cinnabon was a really good idea because you may go days without food, and that 1,200 calorie sugar fat bomb would sustain you as you went out to hunt. In 2019, a Cinnabon is basically just asking your body to take a nap several times on the day that you eat it and try to process all of that sugar and the insulin. It's just not good for you, right? So the same thing happens in running away from pain. Well, you also live in a world where 10,000 years ago, certain pains weren't escapable. Like hunting your food for 2 days, you were going to go through some muscular pain, but that muscular pain was going to lead to growth, muscle endurance, things that made you a better hunter, things that kept you alive, right? But today, that pain exists in the gym, and most people run away from it because it doesn't feel good, even though it comes with a lot of benefits. The point of that previous video was your brain is not wired to keep you happy, it's wired to keep you alive. But the problem is, what keeps us alive in 2019 is very different from what the brain was programmed to help us survive through. Remember, if evolution is true, then we evolve about, what is it, 1% every 10,000 years. So 10,000 years ago, you basically had the same brain that we have now, right? With the fight or flight response. And certainly we didn't have the level of intelligence 10,000 years ago. But you still had the same mechanism, the same computer, just with less information, less data being put into the computer. The same computer, right? It's controlled by your primitive brain, your fight or flight response, and then it's steered by your neocortex or your prefrontal cortex, right? The logic center of the brain. And I know that's kind of heavy, but it's to set the stage for what we're going to talk about tonight, and how these 25 cognitive biases are actually keeping you from things that you want to experience, right? And we'll go through all 25 of them pretty briefly, and then I'll make room for questions. Um, but I highly recommend that what you're seeing on screen right now, at least what you should be seeing, is my website with a picture of Charlie Munger uh, shooting a video. I mean, there's no video; it's just audio of him walking you through the 25 cognitive biases that he lays out in his book, Poor Charlie's Almanac. Right. So it's your brain is 10,000 years old. And so it's going to behave in a way 10,000 years later that does the opposite of what you wanted to do, which is living with a level of prosperity and happiness, right? The things that require you to get prosperity require you to go through pain, but we're wired to run away from it. The things that get you to prosperity and happiness require you to put pleasure on the shelf. You can have a little bit, a little taste, you can get a piece of a Cinnabon, but don't eat 12 of them. You can get a Cinnabon every couple of months. It ain't going to kill you, hopefully. But if you're eating a Cinnabon every day, it's not good, right? And so the things that we're wired to go toward are actually sabotaging the success that we want to have, whatever your definition of success is. So when you understand that your brain is wired wrong for the time that you're living in, then you can start to take action to rewire it. Because the beautiful thing is, like, if you look at any of, I've been connecting with a lot of scientists who, I love getting around really smart scientists that make me feel like I'm 8 years old. I feel like an idiot talking to them, but I like that because then I know I'm getting smarter. And I'm working with a couple scientists that are working with epigenetics and the ability to change genes. And there's been some studies that show, and I'm going to totally butcher this, but it's over time, certain behaviors can change the structure of how your body and your mind work. So you've got to put in some rigor to make your mind behave the way it needs to behave to get to whatever your happiness is, right? Whatever your Kwan, your Shangri-La is, right? But the problem is most people aren't willing to go through that. These 25 cognitive biases will help you understand some of the ways your brain is miswired, and it will keep you from getting things that you want if you don't address these. Now, addressing these takes energy. Our bodies like to conserve energy, right? Like if you look at the laws of thermodynamics and the law of conservation of energy, You look at the laws of inertia. These are laws in physics that are not going away. You're fighting against physics and evolution every time you try to do something that makes you happy, makes you healthy, or brings you some type of wealth, right? So you've got to really decide that you're going to put in the effort and be willing to put in the effort to do the things every day that are going to help you do that. Now, I will tell you the fuel of that effort is not motivation. It's not, listening to one of my calls 70 times until it clicks. It's you need to find, there's a book on my shelf actually. I'm not sure where it is. I used to have it prominently displayed, but it's up there. And it's going to be one of the books I have my students read in our private coaching program. It's going to be one of the mandatory books. But what you've got to do is you have got to cultivate a very, very insatiable desire, right? Because if you can trick your brain into believing that I must have whatever your thing of happiness is, your brain will then do whatever it takes to get you toward it. Right? Like I have rewired my brain that when I'm in the gym lifting weights and I lift to the point where I can feel pain and I feel like I'm going to vomit, I've wired my brain to the point to associate, oh, that's good because now I just burnt calories, I'm losing fat percentage and I'm building muscle, and that's a good thing. I've added a lot of value, and I could teach you about how the brain works and how glutamate is the hormone that causes that. You don't need to know all that. The bottom line is I've associated a great deal of value in my brain to things that help me, that my brain is miswired to walk me away from. These cognitive biases that we're going to go over, now that you know them, you can start to put defenses in place. Like you can know when you're arguing with somebody about something you really don't know about, you can understand that you're dealing with something, say, like the commitment consistency bias or the certainty bias. Right? You're dealing with those two things because you may be arguing about something as esoteric or as God, right? And you're screaming at somebody that disagrees with you, but neither one of you can prove in a tangible human observation way that what you're saying is right or wrong, right? And so it's instead of being open-minded to, let me hear what this guy has to say. Like, so for example, most people would label me as a Christian. Most Christians would label me as a heretic because of what I believe. But as a person who's studied the Bible, for example, extensively, today I was reading the Quran. I was like, let's see what's in there. Let's see what these smart people are talking about, right? Because this thing would not have blown up the way it did if nothing in there was of value. And so instead of looking at it from I need to disprove everything that's in here, it's like let's just read it because a lot of the principles, for example, were taken from, and it says it even in script. Like a lot of the principles in there were taken from Jewish and even Christian teachings, right? So it's very much just when you learn how these cognitive biases are fighting against your ability to win, you can start, you're not getting rid of them. Your mind is wired the way it is, but you can override the programming. Right? It's like you can write a little block of code that says when you get to this block of code, bypass this thing that's hardwired into my brain, right? I'm getting kind of nerdy and computer science on you. But let's take a few comments and then we'll get into the cognitive biases. Let's see. Mango says we are living with too much pleasure and less love. Young IGG says, damn, that's deep. Mind blown. Mango says, we are the same. The difference is around us. Alyssa Rasmussen says, this last generation was raised with a lot of instant gratification, so it feels so difficult to play the long game for true life. It does. It does. And that makes it even harder because our society is accelerating so much faster than our brains can keep up. Like it was already hard. And now we've got cars that drive themselves, and you're right. Like the evolutionary mismatch is only going to get worse because we're just our technology is outrunning us. Right? Like I've been saying kind of something that I've latched onto as I've started to study the ancient philosophers. I'm like, we are way more intelligent today um, than people were back during, say, Socrates or Aristotle's time. We're more intelligent, meaning I think we have the capacity to learn more and we know more things. But we are dumber than the people back then, meaning they spent a lot of time studying people, understanding that humans are a social creature, right? They spent way more time studying the human. We spend way more time now studying things. And I think it's to our detriment that we do that because it helps us. It makes it. I mean, that's how you can have a conversation on Twitter. Like, I mean, I've literally had people send me things on social media where I don't even understand what they're typing. And it's like no one has taught this person, no fault of their own, how to communicate effectively. Or someone trying to have something as nuanced as a debate about abortion on Twitter, and I'm like, what? Why are you talking about this on Twitter? There's no way this discussion leads to, huh, that was really insightful what that person I disagree with said. Like, no. We're just not taught how to really take the time to communicate, which is why I shoot 2 hour videos live instead of edited and all that BS that makes stuff work on YouTube. It's almost like I'm purposefully making content to create a barrier to people who aren't willing to overcome the barrier. Because I know people that are willing to overcome that barrier, you're just going to get a better quality of folks. Like Alyssa's one of the people that's in our coaching program, and we talked last month about how um, I've worked with so many people, not like customers, but just so many people, and you start to realize there's really only a handful of people who are willing to put in the work that makes it worth my time to put the effort in, right? And it's people, usually people who are willing to pay money are willing to put in work. That's kind of one barrier. But then I create these other barriers that are like, dude, I'm not watching this guy's 2 hour video. Great. Because you're probably not a person who's at a place where what I have to say is going to help you anyway, right? So going back and consuming things that are a little bit shorter. By the way, that doesn't make you dumb. That doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't even make you. You may be like me. You may be insanely busy. I don't have time to sit around and watch 2 hour videos. What I do is I'll listen to it while I'm doing something else, right? So I respect that. But it's the fact that people wouldn't even consume the content in any way. They'd rather I'll just watch freaking the new Twilight Zone series, right? So it's, and we're going to talk about this. One of the cognitive biases, this overconsumption of entertainment, and I think Alyssa's right on that. Mango says, I think we are in the peak of full information, and depends on everyone what to do. Young IG says, so in theory, the creator made the perfect human being psychologically, but the world messed up over time. Oof, it's a hard one to answer. I'll give you kind of a theory that I've been rumbling around in my brain right now. If you subscribe to any like spiritual teaching, a lot of them have some similarities, but there's a really interesting one in the Bible that gets overseen because everyone thinks the Bible is the Ten Commandments and then the uh, Judeo law. Like it's that's such a small part of the whole conversation, right? And the law is very important. It's a pivotal piece to what gives birth to faith. But people miss the point of why the law came into being. Because remember, it was man that asked for that, not God demanding it. The point is, the first real command, if you read scripture, if you read the book of Genesis, God tells man to be fruitful, multiply, replenish, and subdue the earth, right? So to me, that alludes to the fact that even in a perfect society, which allegedly this creation was, but there's obviously imperfection all around it, there's things that could get out of order, right? That's what one of my mentors taught me. But if you go back even further to when man is being created, whoever wrote that story is trying to explain the mysteries of the universe, and his brain is probably melting while he's writing it. He's trying to explain that God, this creative force, creates us in his own image and in his own likeness, right? So we are like him. But I think if we were to become like God, which I think is the ultimate goal, how many millions of years would that take to be able to be the entity that created all the stuff that you see up in the sky? How would we expect that he's just going to snap his fingers and then all of a sudden we have the character and the intelligence and everything like he has? Because even if he could snap his fingers and give us all that, the thing that would be missing, I think, from that equation is character. So when you read stuff like the myth or the story or the reality of the Garden of Eden, however you believe it, I think that story is actually God's mercy. It's like, no, because if you stay in this garden, you're going to kill yourself. It's too good, and you're not developed enough yet. And so we go through this development phase that science calls evolution, right? And what I'm saying to you is that you were created perfect spiritually, but there is a natural part of you that's trying to catch up to the godlike part of your inner being. And that process takes time. And it takes so much time, right? But that godlike force in us is creating and creating and creating and creating. And that's why the technology is outpacing our ability, our mind's ability to keep up with it. And it's just, we haven't found a way to speed up evolution, unfortunately. But I think it's just a part of the developing the character as a created soul. Again, that's a theory. That's not, you're not going to find a whole lot of things to back that up in any spiritual teaching or books. The point is, when you look at it scientifically, all I'm saying is you now, your brain is it's still as if it was 10,000 years ago. And your brain doesn't evolve as fast as our technology has outpaced. Like our technology, and if you look at the history of the world, it's always technology that gives birth to civilization. Something gets made and then it makes stuff easier and then civilization's born, right? So in America, for example, it was the railways, right? It was transportation. That was the first thing that really gave birth to what we call then the Industrial Revolution and blah, 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 blah. May have that out of order. Point being, we've become so prosperous and so well off before our brains could catch up to our brains still behave as if saber-toothed tigers chase us when we go outside. It's why we get afraid of horror movies. Right? Our brains just have not caught up to where we are. And so if we are going to be successful in a world that has outpaced us, we have to take authority, I think the God-given authority and ability within us to rewire the brain ourselves. Or at the very least, if we can't rewire or speed up evolution, we can build thinking systems into the machine that bypass the things that we do wrong that sabotage us. And I'll give you an example of how this is done practically, just to prove that it can be done. The military does this. The military figured out for hundreds of years of warfare that no species wants to kill itself, right? So humans do not want to kill other humans. It goes against our genetics. Now, what about murderers? What about terrorists? Yes, 1% of the population is what we call psychotic, and they're missing that part of the brain that tells them, hey, killing other people is wrong, right? So, yes, there is a small group of people who don't abide by that kind of law of the universe, right? But the point is, 99% of us ain't out there killing. But if you're going to be a soldier, you have to be able to kill. And up through World War II, they found that a lot of soldiers were not willing to pick up a weapon and kill a person in front of them. So they started what's called operant conditioning. If you're a video game fan, you've heard about like Skinner boxes, games that are Skinner boxes. Same thing. Operant conditioning then conditions the reactive part of the brain to act in a way that doesn't require the neocortex to logically make the decision. Meaning, if I were to get shot at, I know immediately get on the ground, find out where the fire is coming from, call for suppressive fire, get the target down, and then assault across the objective or break contact and get away from the ambush. Now, how did I recite all of that off the top of my head? I haven't had a bullet shot at me in over a decade. Conditioning. They conditioned my brain to be able to react and to return fire or break contact or to go through a sequence of events that keeps my men safe in a combat situation. But to train a human mind to be able to do that requires a lot of conditioning, and the military calls that training. Some people call it brainwashing, and technically it is. Right? So you can use those same principles, and that's what I'm showing a lot of people in these coaching programs that I have is how to do that specifically. Like how do I take these negative default templates that are in my head, and when something comes up, those negative templates are going to kick in. And I say, nope, we're going to take that template out. We're going to replace it with this template that says, this is how we have to think. And then we have to do that consciously enough times until it becomes habit. Once it's habit, that midbrain or the primitive brain just reacts to whatever you condition it. You can condition the midbrain, or excuse me, the primitive brain to behave in a way that's a fight or flight, but now the flight or the fight is doing the right thing, not eating the Cinnabon. It's a very long answer to a very simple, to a very short question. It's a complicated question, right? Let's see. Mango says his action with reaction. Hey, warrior says, hey, Mango says we changed from fear of know nothing to feel fear of know everything. That's an interesting way to look at it. All right, let's get into the cognitive biases, shall we? Now, like I said, highly recommend when you're done with this, you go and you can see the link here if you guys want to, or you guys can't do that, can you? Let me give you this link to my website so that you can go here and watch this video. I mean, you can look it up on YouTube too, but you'll see that I also provide written descriptions for this stuff that I wrote. So highly recommend that you go watch this video when we're done here or when you have some free time and listen to it more than once, like, because it's going to take you some time to get it. You can see I've listed out the the actual 25 cognitive biases, right? Or in this case, your brain is trying to sabotage you, right? And now let me give you some exceptions to the rule that makes this a little bit harder. So people like me, for example, who have had issues with mental health, you can teach this stuff till you're blue in the face, and sometimes, depending on how severe issues with mental health are, no amount of conditioning is going to just make the brain react a certain way. In some cases, people need medication, for example, to get the brain to behave the way we want it to behave, right? So I actually did a keynote talk last year on motivation, and I talked about a lot of these things. And a guy came up to me afterwards. He's like, "Hey, if you ever do this talk again," he's like, "First of all, great job." He's like, "But if you ever do this talk again, really get into the mental health piece because a lot of the stuff you're saying, there are people in the world who just can't physically do that." I was like, "Dang, dude, you are 100% right," because I'm a person who has mental health issues, and I've had a tremendous amount of help, and still getting help, um, to help me overcome that, right? So exception to the rule, if you have challenges with mental health, and you'd be surprised how many people do. If I had to take a guess, I'd say at least 70% of our population has some type of mental health challenge, right? And then you can scale that to how severe it is, and the numbers go up or go down in terms of severity. Um, but if you ever want to know whether or not people have challenges with mental health, it's like look at if you're a creator, look at the comments you get. Like the really angry, filled with vitriol comments. I never scream or yell at those people because I can tell this person is struggling with some form of either depression, anxiety. I've had both, have both, PTSD, have that. There's something going on there that they and like I've dealt with people, for example, that have schizophrenia, and that's hard, man. That is a I've not ever coached anybody with that, but in my business life, I've worked with people who have schizophrenia, and that no amount of hey, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and make your mind strong. It's not gonna that requires medical attention, whether it's medication. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but that requires intervention. No amount of thinking your way through that is going to overcome what a lot of those people suffer through. Okay, so I wanted to give that as a caveat. If you were challenged with a mental health issue, I don't want you to get to the end of any of my videos and think that I'm sitting in some place of judgment where I have it all figured out and I'm strong and I'm do it like I do it. Dude, half of the stuff I taught, no, 99% of the stuff that I criticize, it's because like I was telling my wife the other day, I think America needs I think America is very bitchy, for example, right? Like we're soft. We're just marshmallowy on the inside and we need to toughen up a little bit. And I told my wife, I said, but I can say that because I'm the chief bitch. In fact, I have a video that I'm going to be shooting in the future called I'm the chief bitch. Like, I'm not judging people for being soft. I'm telling you, I know it because I am living through my own bitchiness and I'm working through my own weaknesses. Not judging anybody. I have the same weaknesses that I'm talking to you about, right? So I want to make that clear. Like I don't want you to get through this like I'm some mastermind, freaking shaman guru that's mastered all this stuff, and now you must get on my level. Like, and then, by the way, there are people that do that, dude, especially in the sales world. You gotta establish yourself as the alpha. So I'm like, dude, I get that that works, but I'm not doing it. I'll just take less sales. How about that? I'll let you have 100 million. One day I'll be a billionaire because I did people right. Right. And not that they're doing people wrong, by the way. Just saying. Want to be respectful of that. Alyssa says, if you live in a city, you are more likely to develop a mental illness. Look into twin studies. Yeah, 100%. In fact, a microcosm of that, for example, is my household. I live in a house with a lot of people, right? And we all have room, but it's like any house that's chaotic, you take it to the bank, you're gonna score somewhere on the scale of depression, for example. It's just, especially when your house is primarily young children, that type of chaos just breeds depression. A lot of people don't realize that. Like I lived with it. Like I didn't understand. I felt guilty that my kids used to, like I'd get, oh, like I'm uncomfortable dealing with the fact that I also deal with war injuries that make it hard for me to be in chaotic environments. And it's like, and then I felt guilty because these are my kids. I shouldn't feel like this around my kids. And it's like, nah, dog, it's natural. You're fine. Your kids are crazy. Like, cool. Mango says 99% of the problem is what we eat. See, Alyssa says true. We eat horribly in the U.S. compared to many other cultures throughout the world. Sadly, we have sick care, not health care. That is a very wise statement. Very true. Drex says funny. My coworkers call me the chief bitch, but it might be for different reasons. Yeah, I talk about America's bitchiness because I recognize their bitchiness because I have enough of it myself. I'm not judging anybody, dog. And I think my personality, I have a tendency to come across like I'm judging people because I'm so forthright. Like, no, I'm speaking with authority because I know my own weakness. I see the weakness because I have the weakness, y'all. Jolly May says patent pending shirt design. I think I am gonna get a shirt made that says I'm the chief bitch. This is true, and it was funny when I told my wife that she laughed out loud. I was like, "These people think some people think I'm judging them." Like, no, I'm telling you, I'm not judging you. I'm telling you from experience. Not to be confused with I'm the chief. I'm the chief, comma bitch. All right, let's get into these cognitive biases before it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Jesus, that's the longest intro I think I've ever given. Although Jolly will probably argue with that. He's like, dude, I've been on 7 hour coaching calls with you. That was nothing. He's like, these mortals have no idea. Yeah, Jolly goes back to when I first started coaching. I remember our first session, and I failed to record it. We had to take food and bathroom breaks. I think somebody took a shower. We had been there. The sun came up because we started at night. Oh man, those were the days. Let's see. Um, all right, the 25 cognitive biases. Now, I have shot some videos explaining it. I never finished this series because I then jumped onto full time doing the 69 pillars. So I got kind of away from it. I always meant to come back and finish these. Maybe I will one day, and I think maybe I'll shoot better ones because some of them have some humor and comedy in them, but they're corny. All right, so the liking loving tendency. We tend to support people we like, even if we're aware of their critical flaws of character. Okay, you'll see this in political situations where I remember, uh, I have some friends who are really, really, really just hardcore Republicans. Like my joke is, if Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees ran on the ticket, you would vote and make an excuse. Well, they didn't kill that many people. Those type of folks, right? And they were sending out these emails about trying to convince all of us on the mailing list that Sarah Palin was actually qualified to be the president in case 207-year-old John McCain passed away, and may he rest in peace. I'm not trying to make fun of him, but it's like, come on, y'all. I get that you may like the woman, and maybe she's competent in a lot of areas, but this BS you just sent me in this email is not going to cut it. And I'm not even a liberal or I'm none of that stuff. And I'm like, come on, guys. Like, you're so into your team, right? I've always said politics is cowboys and Indians. It's like you're either on our team or the other team, right? And it's like watching a football game. And so you have a tendency to look over the flaws of people that you like, right? Like think about a person who was getting away with something heinous, like raping people or taking advantage of children. But because we like that person, it may have been overlooked for years before you just couldn't deny it anymore. Like, no, this dude is bad. So you just need to be careful that who you like, you tend to support, even if you can see some of their glaring flaws, there's going to be a blind spot in your brain because you like this person and you have an affinity for them. The same thing proves true with the disliking and hating tendency, right? It just works in reverse. If you hate somebody, it's impossible for you to look at their redeeming qualities, right? Pick somebody as polarizing as Hitler, and if you try to tell anyone about some of the good that he actually did, and then Hitler's a horrible example because certainly the bad he did outweighs any good he did, but they'll deny that he did anything that was actually positively effective for Germany, right? Which is just not factually true. It's because we hate this person with so much vitriol. Any good thing that they do, right? Like you'll see this in the internet space, on videos, in the marketing space, like in sales, like people who hate Ty Lopez, doesn't matter what that guy does, they're just not going to like him or trust him because of this bias. And unfortunately, I was in a coaching seminar a couple years ago with this guy that was just an asshole, just a flagrant asshole. But he was good, and the things that he was teaching were legit. A lot of it I knew, but he was even teaching. Like I asked him a question about something, and he gave me kind of this: "You need to flip that and do this." I was like, "Man, that was really good, bro." And so you have this situation where the dislike, and I had made a friend at the seminar, and he was getting ready to walk out. He's like, "This guy's an arrogant asshole." I said, "Yes, I'm aware of that. That would take you 3 minutes to figure out listening to him talk, but he's good, and the things he's teaching are legit. Like, just tune him out and learn what he's saying because it's effective." And he just couldn't accept that this guy was teaching him something good because he hated him so much, and because the guy was making fun of him, like he was unnecessarily teasing my buddy in the seminar, which is just completely unprofessional and ridiculous, right? And I don't mean teasing like in a playful, ha ha, that's cute way, like in a demeaning, making this person feel bad in front of the group. And so my friend couldn't separate that. He developed very quickly so much hatred for this guy that he couldn't hear anything else. Right? You need to be careful of that because I've had to tell, especially some of my young, really, really like radical liberal friends, like a lot of the things that you believe in, you're going to need some allies that don't agree with everything you say. And if you shun everybody, you're going to find yourself on a raft by yourself with your 13 other hyper liberal friends. But some of us who actually are trying to listen to what you're saying and hear the merit in it and merit you for some of the things you believe in that are good, you're going to have to accept that we don't agree with everything you say, right? You're just going to have to accept that some of your allies are going to be people you don't like. And if you can't get there, forget about your agenda because it's just not going to happen, right? Okay, so the doubt avoidance tendency. Uh, Humans have survived for millennia by being able to eliminate doubt, right? And make in the moment decisions. One could absolutely see how this ability would be essential for survival thousands of years ago, say running from a saber-toothed tiger. But in the modern world, we're not faced with those same existential challenges uh, as we were back in the day. Thus, we tend to still want to eliminate doubt. Like we want to get to what is the black and white answer right now. But sometimes we go there too quickly when taking action, um, when making and acting upon decisions. Uh, and so Charlie, I actually copied something he said from the video. He says, "So pronounced is the tendency in man to quickly remove doubt by reaching some decision that behavior uh, to counter the tendency is required from judges and jurors. Here, delay before decision making is forced, and one is required to so comport himself prior to conclusion time so that he is wearing a mask of objectivity, and the mask works to help real objectivity along, as we shall see when we next consider man's inconsistency avoidance tendency, which is a huge one. But the point here is, you know, make haste slowly, right? Like sometimes you do have to make a split second decision, but in the modern world, usually you don't have to, right? Like we want to eliminate doubt and get right to making a decision. This is how people run into buyer's remorse, right? Like they talk themselves into something that they have a lot of doubts about, but they don't do any research. They don't do any research. They just go out there and make a decision. I see this happen to people in dating, marriages, where they just, this is the one. Like, dude, you just met her last week. What's happening? And it's just challenging, right? So you want to be able to eliminate doubt, but you want to be able to do it in more of a scientific method way, not in a Let's hurry up and get to a decision just so we can get out of this. And so the comedy video I did here was I was telling my son, "Yo, I know I can throw a ball 100 yards." He's like, "Dad, I don't think you can do this." I was like, "Watch me!" And I threw it, and I think I threw it. I probably threw it 65 or 70 yards because I can throw a ball. But the point was, I just instead of like examining, has anybody else ever thrown a football 100 yards? What were the techniques? Is it even possible? I just went out and did it. Right. All right. So we may not get through all of these tonight because I'm going to take comments from you guys too. Let's see. Drex Ferguson says Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees. What does Hollywood have against Germans? Well, it's not Hollywood. It's Wes Craven. I think Freddy Krueger was the name of a kid that bullied him, so he made his monster that name. The other two guys, I couldn't tell you. Inconsistency, avoidance tendency. I see this rip people apart. And I actually use my brother in this example. Once our minds are made up, we don't like to change or be challenged. Okay, you'll see this in political debate. You'll see this in religious debate. Like you can't even bring a separate perspective to somebody once they've made up their mind that their thing is right. You're not arguing with that. One interesting place I see this play out is in sports fandom. My brother's a Philadelphia Eagles fan simply because of a bathrobe our mother bought him when we were kids. He's never deviated from that fandom despite the team's inability to win the big game. When I wrote this, they had not won the Super Bowl yet. Little did I know they were about to win. Um, the brain of man conserves programming space by being reluctant to change. That's called heuristics, right? It's going to conserve the sugars of the glycogen that your brain is burning to compute things, which is a form of inconsistency avoidance. We see this in all human habits, constructive and destructive. Few people can list a lot of bad habits that they have eliminated. Another place where inconsistency bias just kills folks is once you've been doing something a certain way for so long or thinking a certain way for so long, you don't want to, like, even if you know deep down in your soul, like, I'm dead wrong about this. Like, I had a guy on Instagram today arguing with me. It was like, because I challenged his original point, he didn't like backpedal and say, let me look at it from your perspective. He had to find counterpoints to try to shoot holes in the very detailed parts of my point while disregarding, like he even agreed, like I agree with you in concept, but I need to come back to this thing that I was talking about. I'm like, but that's not what I'm saying. Like I'm not disagreeing with your point. I'm just saying it's asinine to assume that a person who's in the position that they're in, making the comment they're making, that you're not in his position. How could you possibly understand exactly what he means if you haven't been in his shoes? Like, and it's just because he was so committed to his idea. I stopped talking because I was like, there's nothing I'm going to say that's going to help this guy look at it from the other perspective and understand that he's oversimplifying it and there's more nuance to it that I was trying to bring to the table. But then he starts shooting holes in the nuance, the individual nuance. I'm like, no, what I'm saying is there's a whole spectrum of other issues that are at play. And I was just like, forget it. This person is stuck right now kind of in one-dimensional thinking. They're going to commit to the argument they made because they don't want to backpedal and then seem wishy-washy. We're deathly afraid of that, right? So just bear that in mind. Let's see. Alyssa says, our brain is hardwired to make inferences and make quick conclusions sometimes. This helps us, but can also be damaging. Yes, indeed. It's why self-awareness is so important, so you can recognize and can bypass it when it happens. Absolutely. Well said. The curiosity tendency. This is another good and bad thing. Curiosity tendency, we should nurture with every given opportunity. Charlie explains it this way. Curiosity enhanced by the best modern education, which is by definition a minority part in many places, absolutely. Much helps man to prevent or reduce bad consequences arising from other physiological tendencies. The curious are also provided with much more fun, wisdom, and etc. Think about so curiosity tendency is actually one you need to feed. The school systems, if you grew up in America, have been working for years to destroy that tendency, which is why when kids get out of school, they don't ever want to like they can't wait for summer vacation because we're not inspiring curiosity, we're inspiring memorization and test taking. Right? So you want to feed this one. The only time I'd say don't feed this one is if you hear Jason Voorhees in the woods, white people, don't go to see what it is. Like get in the car with all of the black people and leave immediately. Kantian fairness. When you think of Kantian fairness, think of the golden rule. So basically, it's everyone expects the world to be fair, right? I scratch your back, you should be scratching my back, etc., etc., right? And so a lot of marketers and salespeople will use the Kantian fairness and the reciprocation tendency in that I'll give you this free thing because now you'll be much more inclined to buy something from me because that seems fair. Like, oh, he gave me this thing that was of great value. I'd be more than willing to buy this other thing that he has over here, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not manipulative. It's just it's understanding the way humans think. And instead of me trying to sell you something, well, let me give you something first. You see this play out in the mall, right? Where you walk up to like, hey, can I do a thing for you? And then, well, let me sell you the thing that made your nail shiny or whatever it is. Um, that's kind of how the reciprocation and the Kantian fairness. Now, reciprocation can also work in the negative way. It's like if you punch me in the face, well, envy, jealousy, tendency. Envy has always been an interesting monster to me. If I have something, why would you envy me instead of just asking me how I got it? But biology argues that's a very logical way to look at it, but biology is like, no, you have more resources than my tribe and my village have, and talking always makes my nose itch, so I apologize. Um, if your village has more resources than me, your village has a better chance of survival. So that envy and jealousy manifests today as envy and jealousy. Back then, it manifested as a fear of extinction. So it's like, yo, we either need to go raid these people's crib and get their resources, or we need to go out and get resources of our own. All right, so just keep that in mind. That's something that's hardwired into your biology and survival tendencies. Influence from mere association tendency. Have you ever mistaken a correlation for causation? If so, you've been the victim of this tendency, right? So consider the case of many men who've been trained by their previous experience in life to believe that when several similar items are presented for purchase, the one with the highest price will have the highest quality association, right? Knowing this, some seller of an ordinary industrial product, uh, paper ink, printer ink, they do this, right? I think printer ink is what, $10,000 a gallon, some ridiculous number like that. That's where association bias comes in. Simple pain avoiding psychological denial. We will. It's kind of like the best example I could give you is like the ostrich, like putting your head in the sand, not wanting to face this very painful thing. You want to water it down to the point where it's emotionally easier to digest, right? Um, which certainly is not going to help you. Like, for example, if you broke your leg in half and we're like, oh no, it's going to be fine, instead of going to the doctor and actually getting them to fix your leg. Right? Excessive self-regard tendency. Don't want to necessarily call it narcissism because I don't think it's just, oh, I'm awesome, look at me. It's thinking we're better than we are at something. And I think we're all guilty of this at some point. Like, where in your life have you ever thought you were better at something than you really are, and then you launched out there and realized very quickly, oh, yeah, maybe not. Maybe I'm not quite as good. So, it, where this could come into play, like in your life's purpose, or your career, your dreams, is just it doesn't mean you need to downplay yourself or be self-deprecating. It just means you need to have the Michael Jordan humility and realize that even though I'm the best player on the planet, I'm still going to outwork everybody on the court. All right, that's how I'd look at that. Over optimism tendency is the same thing. Like assuming something is going to go better, so you make these decisions without hedging your bets. Right? You definitely don't want to do that. Deprival superreaction tendency. At its core, deprival superreaction tendency is really risk and loss aversion. Said that we humans struggle twice as hard. So think of it like this: if you came to work for me and I immediately gave you a Mercedes Benz or whatever your car of choice is. I don't know why I said Mercedes. I hate Mercedes Benz. I don't know why I picked that one. Like I gave you a Ferrari, right? Like, hey, and then I said, okay, you need to make your sales numbers every month, or I'm going to take the Ferrari back. You're going to be way more afraid of losing that Ferrari than you would be disappointed if you couldn't like earn the money to buy a Ferrari. We are irrationally afraid of losing what we have that we care about, and you need to be aware of that because that can put you in positions where you're so risk averse that you don't take the risk necessary to succeed and get a return on investment. Social proof tendency. We like to do what the crowd's doing. If, I came on here and told you 1 million people bought my private coaching program, you're like, well, hell, I don't want to miss out. Let's go find out what this is about. But when I tell you that it was, over the course of time, it was about 400 people, like, well, why only 400? Well, and it's because I tailored it for those 400 people, right? Like, it's not for everybody. Like, I purposefully let people know this is not a generic program that everyone needs to be in. Like, I actively have told people, yeah, this one's probably not for you. Thanks for asking, right? So we like to do what the crowd's doing. Uh, you want a good example of that? Look at how many Nintendo Wii's were sold. And then in that set of numbers, how big was the subset of women over 50 years old who bought one? And I'm not talking about for their grandkids. I'm talking about they bought it for them. All right. Contrast misreaction tendency, or what I call the contrast bias, right? So let's say, so here's how Charlie says it. Contrast misreaction tendency is routinely used to cause disadvantage for customers buying merchandise and services. To make an ordinary price seem low, the vendor will very frequently create a highly artificial price that is much higher than the price always sought, then advertise his standard price as being as a big reduction from his phony price. So a good example of businesses that do this are businesses going out of business. They'll be like, it's the blowout sale. Everything's 90% off. What you don't realize is they marked it up 110% before they before they discounted it 90%, right? So you're paying probably close to what you would have paid if the store was still in business, or maybe just a couple bucks off, right? Stress influence. That's self-explanatory, right? If you're under duress, you're under stress, it's going to influence the way you make decisions. Not usually for the better. Availability misweighting tendency, right? The way I see this play out, I haven't seen it so much in as I've gotten older. That's because I've been married a long time and I don't date anymore, and I don't really hang out with a lot of people that date anymore. Um, but in younger people, I was guilty of this. I dated my first girlfriend in high school, admittedly because no one else wanted to date me, but she was available, right? And I don't know that it was true that nobody else wanted to date me. I think I was highly insecure and thought that, and then I projected my feelings onto all these other women that were probably like, no, we totally would have dated you, dude. Um, and so that's where you'll see that availability. Like, she is a good option because she's an available option, and she was not. That relationship lasted 3 weeks, right? So you want to be careful with that, taking something just because it's what's available to you. I experienced this also as a collector of video games. Like, ooh, this is a rare game and it's available. I need to hurry up and get it. It's like, no, dude, it'll come around again. Chill out. All right. Use it or lose it tendency. The bottom line is some skills will atrophy over time if you don't keep what I call keep your blade sharp, right? So there's certain skills that if I'm not constantly outside practicing my throws, I'm not going to be a great quarterback, right? So being aware of the fact that if I don't use the skill, I'm going to lose it, or even cognitively, if I don't use my brain, I'm going to lose some of that cognition. Knowing that there's things I can do to prevent it from happening. Drug misinfluence tendency, self-explanatory. You're on drugs, it's going to affect the way you think, um, for good and bad, right? So we talked about mental health issues, and in some cases, people need medication. That drug influence, he calls it misinfluence, and in some cases, that drug influence can be good. Um, but he's talking specifically about taking drugs to escape pain, right? So I believe, anyway. I don't want to misinterpret Charlie. Senescence, misinfluence tendency. At some point, you're going to get old. It's going to affect your ability to make good decisions. You can't, and you're getting older every day. Authority misinfluence tendency. The abuse or misuse of power is a killer. According to Charlie, here's how it's able to take place. So we're used to living in hierarchies, right? These very social constructs, villages, whatever you want to call them, where there's a hierarchy, and we associate a certain amount of authority with the people who are at the top of the hierarchy, and we're inclined to listen to them, even if they're ridiculous, right? In most societies, you have a group of people that's led by a very small percentage of those people, and sometimes those leaders are crazy, right? And they're not helpful. The twaddle tendency, that is the tendency I talk about a lot, where we're spending way too much time on entertainment, right? Instead of coming and hanging out with me for a couple hours and learning, you are watching Game of Thrones marathons. Like, you watch 6 seasons back to back to back. It's just not a good idea. Let's see. Drex Ferguson says, "Hey B Dog, how do you feel about insult comedians, a la Joan Rivers, Don Rickles, Kathy Griffin? Do you think they make a difference telling people the unfiltered truth or saying difficult things?" They can. I think they can for sure. I don't know that I'd call them. I'm not sure what you mean, and my mustache is itching now too. Uh, I'm not sure I know what you mean by insult comedians. Are you just saying comedians that say offensive things, or like intentionally insulting? Because I've never known Joan Rivers to intentionally insult somebody. Like, she has said some very offensive things to make a point, and I think that's valuable. I mean, but most really good comedians at some point say things that are offensive, or at the very least polarizing. You listen to a lot of the stuff Richard Pryor said wasn't easy to swallow, when he's accusing an entire nation of people for letting black people die for decades on drug overdoses, and then a white kid dies on heroin, and now it's an epidemic. Like, that's an offensive, that's a provocative thing to say, but I think it helped people see in the 80s, like, oh dude, the way we do look at the world is kind of in our own little bubble. We need to get out of it, right? So I think that can certainly be useful. Let's see. Reason respecting tendency. In all actions, it is the why that matters most. The challenge here is that our tendency to respect reasoning means we can follow ineffective orders that communicate purpose, even if the purpose is flawed. Right? And then Lollapalooza tendency is a tendency to get extreme consequences by, combining a bunch of these tendencies together. You get what's called the Lollapalooza effect. So salespeople will teach you, for example, in sales, they'll teach you to use start with the liking tendency, like get the client to like you, right? Do that, and then what you want to do is you do want to get them to a place of, you want to not take advantage, but get them to the point where you can remove their objections, getting them away from doubt. Um, Inconsistency. So if your client is speaking in a certain fashion, you want to speak using their words, or even like if I'm typing something to a, if you're typing something to a client in sales, you want to use the words like they use in their email, the words they use on their website, things like that. You want to play on their curiosity. Kantian fairness. I'm going to give you something up front. Say I'm going to audit your entire website and social media and tell you how well it's doing. That's valuable to you. So I'll do that first, so now you'll feel inclined to, in some way, shape, or form, do business with me, right? Same thing with reciprocation. Uh, you'll watch a lot of people in the product sales world, like a person will get Kobe Bryant to come on their show. Like, Kobe Bryant uses my shoes, even though our shoes were made in a sweatshop in the south of China, and all these kids are getting beat to death. It's like, Kobe Bryant wears them, so yeah, right? And then they'll have you take advantage of the fact that people want to run away from pain. So my product will solve the fact that you're overweight, or you don't feel good, or you don't have motivation to go to the gym, right? So you social proof. There's a million people who've been through my course. You combine all of these different things, you stack them up, and then you get what's called the Lollapalooza effect. I'm actually surprised we got through all that in an hour or less. Actually, we got through that pretty quick. I thought that was going to take a lot longer. All right, so that said, that's all I had to tell you guys. What are your questions? As I try to scratch the skin off my nose. I don't know why talking makes my nose itch. Never been able to figure that out. Never understood it. So I will stand by for your questions. And then we'll get ready for the after party on Twitch. But like I said, the after party, I'm going to go kick it with my kids for a while. So it'll be a while. In the meantime, water. I had a video blow up on Instagram the other day. Oh, it's this one. Yep, got a lot of people. Am I missing comments from you guys, or are you just so blown away by the 25 cognitive biases that you're at a loss for words? Ooh, that's a crazy quote. It says you often feel tired, not because you've done too much, but because you've done too little of what sparks a light in you. That's actually what the, the mandatory reading book I'm going to give at the end of the Good Life Playbook is going to talk about. It was something I read. My mentor actually gave me that book when I went in the army. My first spiritual mentor, and I was like, dude, this book just actually he gave me the guy's first book, and then I went and bought that book. It was like, dude, that this commentary is a life changer. Is that Woody Harrelson? Oh, that's a movie. I thought that's why I haven't watched it. I thought it was a TV show. All right, y'all. Are we good? No questions, no comments. Did the stream break? No, everyone's still here. Because if you guys are commenting, I'm not seeing it. That's for sure. Average watch time is 11 minutes. Give everyone a couple more minutes, and then we can bounce. Oh, speaking of my mentor, he just popped up on Instagram. Drex Ferguson says, I am an ENTJ and I'm leaning towards stand up comedy. Any suggestions from someone like me with a razor blade tongue? Real talk. So it's funny. Um, my psych evaluation doctor told me I had to do stand up comedy as a part of my therapy to deal with some of my health issues. My advice is get around other stand ups that, one, get on stage. If you understand anything about how comedy is done, it's someone gets some ideas, they go on stage in all kinds of different places, and they work the material until the material is actually good, right? Because most jokes don't just come out great. Comedians have to work them. So I would just say if you really think stand-up comedy is your thing, get on stage and start telling your jokes, and then let the audience give you the feedback that you need. And if you especially doing stand up in a lot of diverse places, because you get a lot of different audiences, right? Like a lot of the jokes that I've written, a lot of the jokes that I've written, most of them would do okay on any given stage, but I have a couple where I know it would piss certain groups of people off, even though I'm joking, and like the premise of one of my jokes, it really centers around trying to highlight how terrible something is by making fun of people who do it. And so it can sound like I'm making fun of victims when I'm not at all. I'm making fun of the fact that how could someone bring themselves to do something so heinous? So the joke is about basically getting back at the people doing the stuff. But the fact that I would even mention something so bad, there are people who will be offended, right? So a lot of that is just about finding, first of all, finding the funny in what you want to talk about. Uh, but you just got to get on stage and work your material, because at the end of the day, your audience is the judge, right? Not me, not you. The audience gets to pick whether or not you're actually funny. And then what I've heard from, because I've watched interviews from all the comedians I love just to learn from them, like to be a better person in business, to be a better person as a performer, to be a better person as a speaker and as a coach. I learn a lot from comedians because they're very insightful people. And just learning that it takes years of practice to get good at knowing what's going to work and what's not going to work, and how to win an audience and to push an audience away and kind of have that ebb and flow. So I would start watching a lot of interviews, but honestly, I'd just get on stage, period. Sojourner Fathom says, I missed my reminders, so I didn't follow up till now. All good, no worries. Young IGG says, any advice on coming to terms with letting go of toxic people who you love? Like you realize they are just not the person you need to be around at this point of your life, but you still love them. Well, can't you love them from a distance? Like you don't have to start hating them to not be in their life every day. Drex says to help people too, though. Does that make sense? Like you want to use your comedy to help people? Well, I mean, making people laugh to me is helping them. It's a form of medicine, right? So, I mean, I don't think you're going to get on stage and give a sermon. I mean, maybe you will. Maybe you give hilarious sermons. I don't know. But yeah, Eurolam says pretty much every great comedian throughout history had to suffer embarrassment on stage, also for years, even. I mean, every entertainer. I mean, I've had bad shows as a singer. Uh, I've had good speaking engagements that had, in fact, there's a YouTube video of me doing a speaking event where video has a lady get angry at me and kind of like briefly take over the talk and start fussing at me, and then you watch me kind of diffuse it, like because the audience was kind of like, oh my god, it's awkward now, and so I have to deal with her and then also win the audience back to the reason why we're here to talk, which is not to deal with her hypersensitivity to a joke I told that the entire audience but her thought was funny because she thought the joke, she narcissistically believed the joke was about her because she fit the demographic of people I was making fun of people. It wasn't really an age joke, it was a mindset joke. And it was just she fell into that demographic. So of course the joke was about her personally and it was offensive and oh whatever. So you just you get that practice. I knew how to handle this. I know how to handle a heckler basically, which is way easier at a speaking engagement than it is like say at a comedy club. Because in my speaking engagement, nobody's drinking. Two, they're there to hear from me because I'm an expert in something. Right on stage, you're at the mercy of whether or not people are being entertained, so it's harder. But I've had shows where I butchered. Remember, I did one show where one of our singers didn't show up, so I had to do his parts and mine, and I can't sing like him to save my life. You can put a gun to my head and be like, "Sing his notes," like just shoot me. It's over. I lost, right? And or I won, depending on how you look at it. And I sang every one of his songs. I butchered every note, and the audience had no clue. I had a kid come up and ask me for an autograph after the show, and I'm like, dude, were you listening to the show I just sang? Because that was murderously terrible. You just never know, man. Drex says, awesome. Thanks, B. Um, cool. Any other questions? Uh-oh. I hear one of my kids getting fussed at. All right. 10 seconds. Last call for questions, y'all. Check my email real quick. Make sure I had some customers emailing me, so I wanted to make sure they're squared away. Shouts out to Neo Digital VR for following me if you're on this call right now on Twitch. Let me remind you that our after party is going to be right here. Let's see. Young IGG says, true. Yes, I can love from a distance. I'm having trouble ending a relationship that's draining my energy. But yeah, you can still love the person. You just don't need to be around them all the time. You know what I mean? That's kind of the gig where there's lots of people that I have a lot of love for, but I wouldn't spend every day with them. They're not even toxic necessarily. They're just not folks where we would mutually benefit if we were around each other every single day. In fact, I can't really think of anybody like that because I've been pretty practiced at keeping people like that out of my life since I was little, because that was something my dad kind of taught me. Um, but yeah, you can love somebody from a distance. Just slowly kind of pull yourself away from them. And it's just the way it is. You don't ever have to stop loving someone just because they're a person who's not good to be around. Despite depending on what they may be going through in life, you are not their savior, right? You're not their doctor. You're not their pastor. You are not responsible for them acting right. But you are responsible for taking care of yourself. So because you want to pull away from them doesn't mean you love them any less. It just means for your own benefit, which is fair, you just need to pull away. Alyssa says, don't let fear of the unknown hold you back from letting them go. I've been in the same situation. The devil you know may be worse than the one you don't know. For sure. Well said. All right. Last call, y'all. I'm out. Last call for questions, yo. I'm getting, man, I got through a YouTube video. And so let me give you a little bit about why I started doing these videos. I said it, I think last night, and I may have said it today. I announced a couple weeks ago that I was quote unquote leaving YouTube. And what that meant was I was no longer going to be making like those daily vlogs where I'm making content specifically for YouTube. And it's because I figured out that YouTube and I want two very different things to happen in terms of me creating content. YouTube wants me to make content the way a very specific segment of my, well, really the majority of my audience wants me to do, and I don't want to do that. So what YouTube's basically told me is, well, either you make it like this or we're going to continue to throttle your content. So I'm like, okay, cool. I respect that. No bitterness, no resentment. I'm just going to take that content and put it in a place where people will actually, because since you won't let my audience consume this the way I want to make it, and I'm maybe too whatever to, there's just the return on investment for me to make these 10-minute clips of very hard conversations. First of all, it's a disservice to the audience. It's a disservice to the audience if I keep making 1,000 INFP videos, because for the love of God, I made enough of them for you guys to take over the world with. And more importantly, I think there's better stuff out there to help you with self-awareness. So I'd be perpetuating a problem that I think exists on the internet with this. Let me read horoscopes and get palm readings and all this other stuff. That if you believe in that, not against you. It's just not what I do. It's not what I subscribe to. I don't think it's effective, right? And I think Myers-Briggs is slightly above that. And so it's what I thought would be a good place to start our conversation became where the audience wanted me to live, and I'm like, I can't do that. So rather than trying to force my audience to come on a journey with me, which isn't fair to them, I said I'm going to start making the content for Twitch and my podcast, right? Because on Twitch, it just goes into the ether. People can watch it or they can't. It's really immaterial if they come on my podcast or not. But at least it's there. And then I could take my podcast after I've recorded it and just put it on YouTube with about 2,000, 1,200 to 2,000 of you that actually care, who do want to consume content on YouTube. It'll be there for you. But instead of trying to make content for YouTube, I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not a vlogger. I don't have YouTube pillows and t-shirts and all that crap because I really don't have any loyalty to any platform. I like when the troll craze started, like, I'm a YouTuber. Like, no, I'm not a YouTuber. That's not what I am. I use YouTube as a means to an end, which is getting people valuable information they can use to improve their lives, right? And so when it became clear that one, my specific target audience that I want, either one of two things was true. They're not on YouTube, or if they are, they're not looking for what I'm talking about the way I'm talking about it. Because there are channels doing a version of what I wanted to do, but they had to basically make it the Key and Peele show. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to turn this into a comedy show just to get people's attention. I'm just not willing to do that, right? Which is, somewhat narcissistic on my part, but I'm okay with that. Like I can live, I can go, I can meet, my end in my judgment day. Like, yeah, I decided to go a different direction. So I said I'm going to make content for other platforms, and then I'll just put it on YouTube for the people that want to consume it. But that I didn't want to just because I never did that video here on YouTube. I kind of wrote a post about it that a couple of people read, but I was like, let me do a couple of videos for you guys. Some things that have been on my mind as I've been going through my journey to get well, mentally and physically, dealing with a lot of my injuries, emotional and mental injuries and physical injuries. Just trying to stay out of hospitals. I was like, well, let me give you guys a couple of videos that are on my mind, then use them as an opportunity to say, okay, there's a couple of things that are happening. I'm not going to keep making these 15-minute videos for YouTube that I don't think are very helpful, because the things we need to talk about, the things I want to help you with, they take discussion. They take interaction, not just here's 7 ways you can get your passive income. Like, it's fine. There's plenty of people doing that. And those videos are good, but they're never going to go into the level of detail you need to actually, 'cause you're going to learn through the execution. The video is going to give you the idea. You're going to learn in the execution. The way I wanted to make videos was to actually walk you through the execution on the video. And YouTube just made it clear, like, dude, we don't want that. I was like, all right, bet. And I had that conversation with actual YouTube engineers years ago where I'm like, look, man, you guys created this live platform and I want to do this, but like meet me halfway. And they're like, yeah, we hear what you're saying, but what we want is you to take that big thing, that 6-hour video you did, and chop it into like montages. I'm like, dude, I don't mind chopping up like something specific I was talking about because we do that. But then you lose some of the nuance too. And it was just like, you gave us this great platform, but then you don't even want to really promote it in a way that makes it viable. Not for me, I couldn't care less. Like, I know all the stuff I'm talking about. I don't need to watch it, but I want other people to be able to see it. And if it's not like my core audience who's going to show up no matter what I do, like, but all of those people follow me on Facebook. All of those people, if they have Instagram, follow me there. And more importantly, all of those people, because a number of them are students of mine, where they're like, hey, dude, can you turn this into an audio so I can just listen to it? I'm like, that's the answer. I'm just going to do it in a podcast because then everybody can listen to it because it doesn't interrupt your day, right? But I wanted to make a couple videos on things that I was thinking about. Again, for the couple hundred of you that'll actually watch it, I thought that was right. And then tell you during the video, here's what's going on with me. Like, I'm decided to get out of the online coaching world because I'm working on, first and foremost, getting healthy, again, staying out of hospitals. Two, I'm working on building something for next year where I'm going to be doing coaching in person, right? Like live, we're going to be in a room together in a neighborhood near yours. I'm going to be doing coaching. And then what that would allow me to do is finish with the students that I was coaching online and give them something really, really valuable that they could take away and always have access to. And then package that, you know, you can watch the videos after the fact, but you lose the me element. Like, you lose the interaction with me, which is the most valuable piece, right? Most people that watch the videos, that are students of mine, they've learned some new things, but really the interaction was the personal touch. So it's like, well, if I package that, people who didn't want to join the program or couldn't afford the program could still watch the videos and get something out of it, right? So it's like, I can package that and sell it after the fact. For a really steep discount to make it attractive to people who otherwise would probably blow it off. And my goal is to really help a lot of people. So I wanted to shoot a couple of videos where we could talk about that and really kind of put the nail in the coffin of this. Is he ever going to make any more INFP videos? No. Well, I never say never. There may be a reason for me to make an INFP video. But, if you're looking for that, I would encourage you to come up a level higher and say, look, Myers-Briggs is cute. And I use that word very specific. It's cute. There's good storytelling around it. It's cool when you start to learn about your type and the tendencies that do identify with what you're saying. But there's better scientific tests out there that will actually teach you things about yourself that you can start to apply to your life and start to make adjustments to yourself. What I hate about the Myers-Briggs is it puts you in this box and says, well, this is what you are. You're welcome. And it's like, well, no, you're a narcissistic prick. That needs to change. And that's not because you're an ENTJ. It's because you're an asshole. Like, there's a difference. You know what I mean? And there's tests that can actually say, yeah, you're an asshole. You should probably fix that. So it's, I wanted to kind of have that clean break of, I know a lot of people would be disappointed, but I needed to be real and be honest with you. So I was like, let me shoot a couple videos. I may do a couple more if I think of some things in my downtime on the weekends. But I'm really focused on taking care of my students and finishing up with them. And then, like I said, just getting well. It's about the only thing I'm really making time for. So let's take... got some more comments here. Lauren Gray says, thank you for your insight. You have helped me through times I have felt very lost. I am 19 and have struggled in and out of high school. You have helped ease me into this new chapter of my life. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you for sharing that, Lauren. That's a blessing to hear. Drex Ferguson says, I love my family, but there's a reason they're 600 miles away. And sometimes it's the way it's got to be, man. Sometimes you love people, you just don't get along with them. And that's okay. That's totally fine. Sojourner Fathom says, "What's your preferred recommendation for a book about cognitive biases?" Actually, the book so let me come off this page and show it to you. Which one was it? Basically, the book that this is taken from, Poor Charlie's Almanac, is where I would get that information. Uh, Lauren Grace says, "You are an educator and you care about society's well-being." I do. I care about people, man, and I want to see people. I want to see people thrive, man, not just survive. And because I think it's possible. You just, if nothing else, I'm trying to stir two things up in people, make them self-aware, and then give them this insatiable desire to grow and to learn that they can't quench, so that it'll propel them forward. And then they can be angry at me. Because sometimes, I talk about that in kind of in my inner circles. I say sometimes I envy the guy that can just go work at the lumber yard and then like play on his company softball team, drink some beers on you know Friday night with the company softball team, and that's his life. And he just enjoys that, man. Like sometimes I envy that simplicity. Like I've got these grandiose, I want to do things to really, really help people globally. Because I don't think the system has failed us. I think we have failed us because we depended on a system to do it for us, instead of understanding that government starts with self-governance. We lost sight of that, and then obviously there's been politicians who are also happy to take advantage of that because it can keep them in office forever. It's kind of like a church that doesn't really teach you anything. They just let you keep coming around so you keep paying your tithes. Believe it or not, that happens, sadly. Um, but that's kind of what I wanted to combat, and it's not for everybody. Yeah, I'm not trying to change the dude that works at the lumber yard and then plays on the softball team. If he's happy, I'm not trying to disturb that. Like I said, I kind of envy the dude. Like such a simple life. Not have to deal with the pressures of building a business and attracting people to it that can help you, and then creating things that like I'm creating things that are affecting people's livelihoods, and that's a huge pressure. Every time someone signs up with me, like I take it so like it's an emotional thing for me. I think it always will be, because I'll never be the type of salesman that can just not care about the person on the other end, right? And I'm not really a salesman, right? I sell out of necessity to get something into people's hands that will help them, but I'll never be like just a salesman who can meet quotas and drive a Ferrari and sleep at night because I sold so many things. I have to know, and honestly, like, in the world like where I've helped companies with their marketing, I've left so much money on the table because there's so many people out there that don't know what they're doing. I could easily convince them that, oh, you need, like I'll use a specific example. You need a YouTube consultant, because YouTube, like what all the bullshit blogs say, there's 2 billion people on YouTube and 130 million view it active a day, and 6 billion years of videos are uploaded every day. Yeah, and none of these 2 billion people are watching videos about your stupid ass car wash. So why would I sell you for $2,000 a month a YouTube consultation and make all these videos and like pay to get people to like? It's so manipulative. And sadly, there's companies out there that do that. I know companies in my region that sell like YouTube. And I'm like, who are you selling YouTube? Like, I am a certified YouTube growth professional. Like, I'm certified in that. I understand how this stuff works. And if I'm being honest with this business, they're wasting their time putting up YouTube commercials. Now, if they're doing YouTube ads, that's a whole different story. That I'm okay with. But um, helping them build a YouTube channel for what? They're not going to get, like, a local car wash is not getting customers from YouTube videos unless they've got someone that works there that is like a stripper or sings really well, and they're there to pay attention to the singer, and you distract them long enough to then tell them about the car wash. But it's just, one of my struggles in sales is I can never sell something I don't believe in, and there's so much stuff I don't believe in, because I know better. It's like I'm not gonna sell somebody this, and even though I could even make it could easily make it look like, yo, this is working. Look at how many views we got you. These bullshit metrics where it's like, I care how many views I got. How many sales did I get this week? So I'm just not capable of doing that. Alyssa says it's all the cat videos. Sojourner Fathom says, you've got such a beautiful soul. Oh, I appreciate that, man. I'm working on it. I'm working on the soul, man, every day, trying to get a little bit better. But I appreciate that. Euro Lamb says, I think the INFP video content transfers well into broader videos, so I don't think it would alienate the MBTI folks because they can still work on their weaknesses with or without. Yeah, and I agree. That's actually why I shot the videos. Where the problem comes in is that when and this is where YouTube and I are kind of at odds. And respect. Look, man, it's their platform. I'm just a I'm just a passenger, right? No beef, no complaints either. It is what it is. My my issue is where I'm at odds with YouTube is YouTube wants me to keep making that content because they know they can get views out of it. And they can, even though I don't run ads on my content, they can keep people on the platform longer by putting them into this INFP rabbit hole because it's proven INFPs will watch tons of content. You know how many people tell me on probably a weekly basis, dude, I stayed up 70 hours watching all your INFP videos. YouTube has taken note of that. Like, this dude made a video, it made them watch 20 of them. So YouTube's telling me, yo, B, where's the next? It's almost like a drug, like a pimp. Like, hey ho, where's my next INFP video at? Like, I don't want to make, like, oh, come on, man, I want to do something else with my life, pimp. I don't, you know what I mean? YouTube becomes kind of this big bad pimp of where's my content. It's like, well, I don't want to make that anymore. And so rather than shooting a 2-hour video and then editing it and uploading it to YouTube for 400 people to watch, I'll shoot a podcast of it, get 400,000 people to listen to it over time, and then I'll just put that unedited thing on, well, it'll be somewhat edited, on YouTube after the fact. And then the people that want to watch it can watch it, and YouTube can just be angry because it's like, oh, he won't make this stuff anymore. Like I've noticed YouTube started promoting a lot of other creators that have filled the void that I left when I stopped talking about that stuff. And I also saw the ceiling, right? Like that stuff's only going to go so far. Eventually, people are going to get tired of it, and it'll get like everything else on YouTube. It'll get saturated, and that means it gets harder for you to make a video and get viewership. I just happened to hit when I happened to hit when no one was as good at it as I was. I don't mean that arrogantly, dude. I've been teaching and taking Myers Briggs for the better part of 20 some years, right? So I could speak to it in a way that other people, and I had all this life experience, and I understood this actual psychology, and I understood better personality tests. Because what I tried to do was funnel people from okay INFPs and INFJs and ENTJs, my 3 top things. A little pro tip for you if you want to steal my formula. Let me funnel you into this. Like, I literally had a INFPs, this other personality test will change your life, but nobody watched it because it wasn't specific enough about an issue that INFPs were having. And it was, well, I want more INFP content because I want to hear about me, 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 me. And that's not a hit against INFPs. That's humans, right? We're all like that. And so YouTube wanted me to make more of that content. And I'm just like, I'm not doing it. Because I think me making more of that content it's doing the viewer a disservice by creating some phony idea around having that personality type when what I think is happening is that personality type is very susceptible to being pigeonholed and impressionable. And I'm like, all my content was centered around stop judging yourself, stop putting yourself in a box. Can your personality type change? Yes, science says it can, but then the cognitive functions cult came and started yelling at me. It can never change. Like, science disagrees. Upwards of 80% of people that take the test differently. Well, they took it wrong. That's what it has to be. They weren't being honest. Listen, I can't measure that. So it got into a thing where like I was trying to set people free from limited thinking. Like don't just put yourself in this box, find out more about yourself. And YouTube wasn't really interested in that. So I was like, all right, cool. And by the way, it wasn't the first time I've been through that with YouTube, right? So it was understanding how the machine works. I just wasn't willing to play the game. I wasn't for the sake of my audience and the people I want to reach. I wasn't willing to play the game and keep making like I jokingly made a "What should INFPs eat for dinner" video. And a ton of people watched. I'm like, guys, I'm kidding. Like, and they got that I was kidding, right? But YouTube promoted that, and I'm like, I forgot this algorithm can only read at like a ninth grade level. It's not the most intelligent thing in the world. You know what I mean? So that's where it wasn't that I thought the content couldn't help people transition. It's that the transitional videos YouTube was never going to show to you unless you were like just a crazy active person on my channel who watches everything. YouTube, and I experimented with it for months. It's like YouTube is not showing people unless I do some sensationalistic. I did a video called "Why I Take Cold Showers" and I'm in a robe. Oh, he's kind of naked. Let's see what this is about, right? Unless I do something to really, really spark your curiosity. YouTube wasn't showing it to people, so it was just like, okay, I get it. YouTube, the pimp wants what it wants. I'm not willing to keep doing it, so I'm gonna quit hoeing and go take my services somewhere where they can actually be a little bit more useful, and then bring back the byproduct of that work and just put it on YouTube for the few people that want to consume content here. Because there's people that told me like, "Yo, I prefer to watch you on YouTube." Like that's cool. There will still be stuff here. You just have to wait a little bit. That's all. All right. Let's see. Young IGG says 100. I do telemarketing, and that's my golden rule. It has to be a quality product. I got to be comfortable selling their product to my grandma. Yeah, otherwise I'm not going to be a good consultant for you. 100%. Lauren Grace says, crap, totally understand. So anyway, friends, any more questions? It was a very long rant that I went on, but I wanted you all to understand why the content stopped, why I said, hey, I'm going to kind of just ride off into the sunset here, even though you're still seeing content, and you will. You'll continue to see content on YouTube. It just won't be content that I'm formatting specifically for YouTube. We may still do our fitness stuff when we get into doing that on YouTube. I think it works better on Instagram uh, because it's going to be these short workout videos that just walk you through my daily routine for the day and kind of give you a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's what I did. Here's how you can do it, and like speed the video up so it'll fit within a minute. I just think that works better on Facebook and on Instagram than on YouTube because it'll be a little bit too generalized, and there's way too many people on YouTube who destroy any talent that I have for doing fitness stuff. So I think uh, my advice to all of you who follow me with any regularity is if you're not already if you haven't already liked my Facebook page, which is Bryant Chambers page, don't bother sending a friend request to me because I don't ever use regular Facebook. I don't do it. I don't comment. I don't like things because I don't want a bunch of. And I don't use my feed, so just follow the page and message me there. Like the page, follow the page, and message me there. I will get back to you. Highly recommend you get in touch with me there and connect. Highly recommend that you connect with me on Instagram because you'll get these kind of 2-hour videos in a 1-minute bite-sized thing that if you just don't have the time, it at least kind of sparks your curiosity, and then it links you to my website where you can watch more detailed stuff like what's on the screen right now. Um, I would definitely subscribe to the Bryant Chambers Movement on iTunes if you use iTunes. There's some content there now, but it's going to relaunch hopefully in June once I get back into the mix. And we're going to have a metric ton of content that's already been made that's going to come out. And then I'm also going to be creating content like by the time we launch, we'll have, I think, 3 months worth of content in the queue. And then I'm going to be making content at least once a week. Actually, I'll be making content at least twice a week because I have a couple different shows I want to do on the movement. I even have an entertainment show that we're going to do. But you'll have more content than you can possibly consume. And the beautiful thing is these long conversations won't be a video that you need to sit in front of your phone and watch. You can just put your headset in, turn on iTunes, and just listen to me have these conversations. And I've already got guests lined up. I have co-hosts lined up. I just thought of another guest that I want to reach out to today. People that I want to work with. It's going to be amazing. So I would definitely follow, and you can consume the content that's there already. There's some good stuff on the Bryant Chambers movement on iTunes, but those are the three places. And I would say Twitch. The link to my Twitch account is up there. If you want to catch me live, that's really kind of my downtime where I'll be hanging out. I won't necessarily be doing like in-depth cognitive buys, but we do that like, whew, was it a month ago? I was playing some game and I had an awesome lady who watches some of my stuff. We had a conversation about the education system in America, and it was freaking awesome. It's like, dude, you need to come on every show. That was awesome, lady. So sometimes the conversations do get heavy, like they get here, and they're very interesting. Let's see. Law D says, Laudy says, definitely appreciated taking the Hexaco test as it covers a lot more facets and far less contradictory than other tests like the Myers-Briggs. 100%. I was hoping to be able to transition this channel into a Hexaco thing. It will eventually, one day. It's just Hexaco's still a little bit too early. There's not enough. It doesn't have a cult following like Myers-Briggs. Like Myers-Briggs is a religion. I don't know if you guys know that, but there are people who can't imagine some of the comments I got for making videos saying things that didn't fall within the religion of Myers-Briggs. Woo! You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, yeah, I probably don't, because the test is basically made up of a bunch of stuff people invented on top of an actual legitimate scientist observations, which I know 100% what I'm talking about there. So yeah, whatever magical thing you're talking about, you're probably right, because there's hobbits and Smeagol and everything else going on, and the lottery numbers you're supposed to be playing. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. But yeah, definitely I can't recommend the Hexaco test enough, which I think I have that pulled up. You can get to it right here at hexaco.org. Can't recommend it enough. All right. Did I cover everything, guys? I think I got everybody's questions. Did I miss anybody? I'm going through here now. I don't think I missed anybody. But like I said, I may do a couple more of these just to kind of help you guys transition and just to reach the bulk of my audience, to let you know where you should be to catch the things that I'm doing. Instagram and Facebook. Instagram, Facebook, podcast. Those are the biggest places you need to be connected with me. I'd also say Twitch, because we have a lot of fun there. You get to watch me suck at video games, which is one of my hobbies, right? And you get to hear me. I have a show called the Get Off My Lawn Gamer, because I complain so much about modern video games being so stupid the way that they're designed. Like, this isn't a game. What is this? Uh, and now, like, I'm playing Horizon Zero Dawn, and it just literally punched me in the mouth. Like, oh, all those things you complained about, dude. Mm-mm. We did them all perfectly, so you can kiss our ass. And I'm like, Gorilla, I pucker up. I'll kiss both cheeks, because they completely dismantled all of the critiques I've left. Well, I'm still playing the game, so let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Figure out what my kid is screaming about. Hey, what's all that screaming about, dude? That's right. Come here, dude. Put you on camera. Let's see. Alyssa says you have little stealth in video games. Yeah, and I typically hate stealth video games, but somehow even Horizon Zero Dawn got stealth okay. Alyssa says I enjoy watching last night. Yeah, somehow they got the stealth right. Now I suck at it, but somehow even the stealth doesn't drive me nuts in Horizon Zero Dawn. I don't know how they did it. And it's weird because this company's made like 7 games and they're all shooters. And they're like, let's just make an RPG, and then they make one better than everybody else. It's not The Witcher 3. Um, it's not. What's another game that's better than Horizon Zero Dawn from an RPG perspective? Like, it's not. Um, I mean, but it's a better story than The Witcher 3. Um, combat is arguably not as challenging for the Witcher 3's combat is challenging for the wrong reasons because the controls are slippery. But it is fun. Can't get away. So yeah, it's you get to watch me suck it. So I start. Oh, and I started playing. What's it called? Near Automata, right? So I was playing that, and this game is just. I decided after playing this that I'm going to collect every game that Platinum Games has ever made, minus the Star Fox reboot or whatever it is they did that supposedly sucked. Um, Basically buy every game they've ever done. So like I just got Metal Gear Solid Rising. I gotta find Vanquish. That game's been harder to find. I just got the Bayonetta, the 2 disc for the Wii U, which I need to get my kids to give me the freaking Wii U. They're not using it. Um, it's where it comes with Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2 in the same disc. Because I avoided Bayonetta for years. I'm not playing that crap. But then I played Near Automata. Uh, I got Nier as well, but I don't think Platinum made the original Nier. But it's like, yo, I'm buying every game these dudes ever make from now. And they got a new game coming out, I think this year, which looks dope. So, anyway, friends, I'm out of here. Looks like we've answered all the questions. I hope I've blessed you in some way, shape, or form, made your life better. Definitely come join us. Oh, that's the wrong link. I'm gonna say come join us at the after party over on Twitch. If Alyssa enjoyed it, then you know it's awesome. So, I don't know exactly what time I'll be back. Also, my wife, I think, is coming home from her outing. So I'm gonna have to talk to her. So I'm thinking somewhere closer to 11, if my wife doesn't have something for me to do, is when I'll get back on the mic. And if I don't, I'll see you guys on the next one. Anyway, it has been my absolute pleasure to serve all of you this fine evening. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Um, don't think I'll be streaming tomorrow on YouTube, which is another reason why you need to follow me on Twitch because I'm always open. If I'm streaming and you happen to catch me, I'm always open to chat. Like if you want to talk about something, like questions you ask me here, I don't discriminate. Like I don't say, hey, I'm having fun. I don't want to talk about that. Like if you want to talk about something, come holler at me. Um, and it's much easier than answering a long comment or an email if I can talk it out. So definitely follow me on Twitch. We'll hang out there. Anyway, friends, as always, it's been real. Uh, if I do stream here in the next couple of days, just watch because what I'll do is I will schedule the stream first. Even though the time may not be exact, it'll still alert you to, hey, this dude's going to stream. I need to be paying attention today. So if I do stream, and you'll see the title, you'll see what I'm going to be talking about. Um, we'll go from there. Either way, friends, as always, I love you guys much. We are stronger than I, and see you on the next one. I'll see you over on Twitch later tonight. Peace.